Golden State Media Concepts Fantasy Football Podcast is your one-stop shop for fantasy football news and advice. Can't decide on who to draft on the first round? Going gaga on how to line up your team. Got you covered. Traditional league, dynasty league, PPR league, IDP league, even daily fantasy football league. Join us as we break down all the questions of fantasy football. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Fantasy Football Podcast.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Jeff Malinoff. Let's get into it. We have new free agent signings that seem to be, well, technically they haven't signed yet, but it seems like they're in a verbal agreement that they're going to sign these contracts. And we won't be looking at the defensive ones based off the fact that, like, you can't really individually sign a defensive. You can't, well, and I guess there's a certain fantasy draft, but I don't really see that often, to be honest. We'll just do a traditional way of how we do it. So with that being said, let's move into what the if there's any major defensive ones that says this can change the defense and make you even better on the defensive side and pick up their defense, then I will say it. But let's just look at those major signings so far. Wow. Just now, not even a minute ago, the Bills are signing wide receiver Cole Beasley. He'll get $29 million over 4 years. Holy moly. Not that I'm saying draft him early. Honestly, if he's free agent and you want to just pick up something of that nature, then fine. I mean, as someone that if you're, I don't know. Don't pick him up, obviously, because he's on the Bills. But, wow, that literally happened a minute ago. $29 million over 4 years. Damn. Bills, you talking about money to burn. Anyways, moving on from that. Obviously, the biggest contracts are coming from the defensive side. Oh, wait. Okay. So Antonio Brown, it looks like, said something on Twitter. No, it's not. It's not. It's, okay. Okay, so somebody on what looks like so someone is saying that right now Le'Veon Bell is saying, tell them to spill the beans on what team he's going to go for. So, okay, we got something here. I don't want to say anything yet because I want to see what happens with this and where Le'Veon Bell is going, because this will change my whole show. Say it already. That was 9 minutes ago. You said spill the beans. You know, like, don't keep us waiting. Wow. I don't know where to go from here. But wait. Okay. Oh, I don't know what's happening here. I'm at a loss at the moment. I had this show planned out of talking about certain guys that signed, like Nick Foles and Latavius Murray, who just got signed, and all these other players offensively that got signed. And now all this came out of flipping nowhere, and I'm super curious to see where this goes. And if I do know where he's going, this will change the show. But nothing's happened yet. All right, I'm going to keep my eye on my phone throughout this entire show, because I've got to know how this is going to go down. But, okay, we'll start with the big signing, like I said. We'll start with the signing of one. So, Nick Foles signed an $88 million deal over 4 years to the Jacksonville Jaguars. And so with this signing, this doesn't just benefit the Jaguars offensively. This helps the Jaguars defensively as well. Because one of the things that the Jaguars had trouble on defense with was staying on the field way too long. And they were on the field consistently. And, I mean, Blake Bortles, 3 and outs and interceptions was his bread and butter. You know what I mean? It felt more along the lines of we as in the Jaguars couldn't do much when it came down to the fact that they were so exhausted on the defensive side that they were just missing plays left and right. And I wouldn't say it's their fault, but I mean, you got to put some fault in them, of course. But I think it's more along the lines of how the offense was so inept to do anything that they just couldn't get the job done. And so with Nick Foles, a guy who's actually consistent and a guy that's taken the Eagles to the playoffs back-to-back seasons and won a Super Bowl, I mean, it's safe to say that he can get those 3 to 4 first downs a possession. He can get those 10 to 15 minute time of possessions throughout the entire game, or even more. Get that time to have the defense rest and give them opportunities to just. Because the less time that team stays on the field, the defensive side stays on the field, the better they will be. I think that's for every defense. Some of the if you consistently turn the ball over as your defense gets the ball turned over, or you are holding on to the ball on the offensive side, that is bettering your team. The less time your defense is on the field, the better that defense is, of course. And that's just the way it works. And with now Nick Foles, who maybe is not the best, he's obviously not the best quarterback in the NFL by a long shot or anything of that nature, but he's definitely a huge boost to the Jacksonville Jaguars in replacement of Blake Bortles, who seems to be going to be released soon. And it seems that he won't be a starter anywhere else unless I'll be shocked if he does. But it seems to me that era in Jacksonville is as good as over, and Blake Bortles or Nick Foles is the new era in the Jacksonville Jaguars' future. Can this make him into a title contender? Who knows? But the question is, can he be good on your as your quarterback? I say, to be honest, I say that it's more along the lines of he's great as your backup quarterback, and when you need a quarterback, when your starting quarterback is on a bye week, then it's probably the best idea to have him. But as your number one quarterback, I would say no. I honestly wouldn't. And it's nothing against Nick Foles. I just think the offense around him ain't that special, and it's just going to be short yardage gains and first downs and such. It's not going to be 30 to 35 point games. It's going to be more 15 to 20 if he's going to average anything. So with that, I say just don't have him as your starter unless you are down to like desperate times, desperate measures type of thing. But we'll see. It's going to be very interesting to say the least. An update on Le'Veon Bell. It's not official where he's signing yet, but people, I love that people really try to search for any clues whatsoever. Le'Veon Bell said at midnight his album Life's a Gamble is going to be out, I guess. He just says midnight with the 3 fire emojis, and his album Life is a Gamble. So my guess is people are assuming that he's saying he's going to the Raiders because gambling, Vegas, Oakland, just it all connects, right? or he's just completely trolling everybody and just promoting his CD to gain that type of aspect, which makes sense. So I really have no clue. I think he's just promoting his album, to be completely honest with you. I don't think it's, I'm going to Vegas, which means I'm going to play for the Raiders this season and join them in their road to Vegas. I don't think that's what actually the case is. If he does go to Oakland, he's going to get the ball a lot. Because John Gruden loves to run the football. He will be moving up to one of the top picks in the draft, hands down. In your fantasy draft, hands down. I truly believe that. If he goes to the Raiders. Honestly, where he goes to any team, it really, I just think regardless what team he goes on, he's going to utilize in an incredible amount. So that means he's going to be a top pick regardless. He's a year off, fresh, and it just seems like that's going to be the right move for the foreseeable future. I wouldn't have, number one overall, I would be hesitant to be completely honest with you. But if you had like the 5th or 6th pick, yeah, I would say go for him. But honestly, if you did pick him number 1, I get it. I think it would be somewhat smart, but I think people are hesitant because I know he's on a new team and everything, but that's also the hesitant of like he's on a new team. Is he going to be fitting in their offensive scheme regardless where he goes to and all this blah, blah, blah. But, gosh, I just want to know what team he's going to go on so I can talk about it in more detail. I mean, I have more stuff, but I think people really care more about where he's going now, where Le'Veon Bell is going than where Latavius Murray went. No offense to Latavius Murray. He's going to be a great asset to his new team in the New Orleans Saints, but Le'Veon Bell is the name right now, and I just wanted to know, so I get this feeling out of my chest, man. This anxiety, this anticipation is killing me. Like I can't breathe right now, and maybe it's because I'm talking, I can't really breathe and talk at the same time. But Le'Veon, just make up your gosh darn mind. It's not that hard. Is it? I don't know. But, man, I'm just dying to find out. And, 5 days ago, Le'Veon Bell said his album is coming March 13th. So it is I think his post is just his album because at midnight his album comes out. And, of course, his album also comes out on the day the offseason officially begins. Gosh, it's just stressful to say the least. But regardless, I think that the waiting is killing everybody and the anticipation is mounting. And I just want to know. I want to know. Is it okay just to know? I don't know. It's gonna kill me. Anyways, we're gonna take a quick short break, and when we come back, we'll be talking about Deshaun Jackson and his trade back to Philadelphia, and what does that mean for your fantasy team? And is he a hot commodity in Philadelphia? We'll be right back right after this.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines, they got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back to the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Finished talking about Nick Foles and his future with the Jacksonville Jaguars and if that's best for your fantasy team next season. But the main thing I want to talk about now is the trade that has Deshaun Jackson returning to the Philadelphia Eagles as he's traded for, I believe, a 6th and a 7th round pick. And with that addition to the Eagles team, the question is Deshaun Jackson still a good player, a quality player? With that being said, when he was with Jameis Winston, when Jameis Winston was under center and the starting quarterback, Deshaun Jackson did not play well at all. He actually struggled quite a lot. And with Ryan Fitzpatrick or anyone else for that matter, he was excellent. I mean, there's nothing really else to say that can further explain that. So with his move to Philadelphia yet again, he's back in Philadelphia. The question is, do you put him on your fantasy team? And he's pretty underrated at the moment because he usually is a big contributor when it's not Jameis Winston. They did this on ESPN where his numbers are significantly better with Ryan Fitzpatrick and others compared to Jameis Winston. So with that being said, I say draft him. And I'm not saying we have him the first quarterback or the third quarterback. I'm saying like your last pick in the draft, go with Deshaun Jackson. Keep him as your backup. You can go with other key players before that last wide receiver pick of yours for your bench. But I think having Deshaun Jackson would benefit your bench and maybe even have him be your starter later on. I truly believe that. And it honestly could benefit wonders for you going into the next season. If you have him on your bench and you have him for that time, you can win some games. When a good receiver's on a bye week and he's filled in, I think he's a perfect fill-in as well. I think he's a great commodity, and I think that we're all on the lines that he's going to be a pretty good player and a big help and a big commodity to the Philadelphia Eagles, just like he was before. So that's my take on that big deal. Still waiting on Le'Veon Bell. It's happening today. I can feel it. But you know what's going to happen is I'm going to keep waiting and then going, okay, that's our show. It's going to be 45, 50 minutes at the end of our show. And I'm going to be like, okay, thank you all for joining us. And as I'm editing the show and finishing up and heading home for the day, I will see an update says Le'Veon Bell signs with ... And then I will facepalm my face off. Like Nicolas Cage did in that one movie. Face Off. Have you seen Face Off? I like Face Off. Anyways, I think that we need to figure this out right now because I know I can wait, but as I'm live on air, I would love to just hear my initial reaction to it and not just have just tell you about my reaction. I want you guys to hear my reaction to it. Okay. Anyways. Okay, we're just going to try to move on from this. So we just finished talking about Deshaun Jackson and how he would fit with the Philadelphia Eagles, and I say really well. Now, another addition offensively to a team is Latavius Murray and him going to the Saints, which means Mark Ingram won't be going back to the Saints most likely. So the question is, if Mark Ingram goes somewhere, is he going to start and is he going to be the man with no longer Alvin Kamara sharing the snap count? Is it a logical reasoning to pick him as one of your running backs or your flex player? Again, I think it mainly depends on where he goes. If he goes where another starting quarterback or starting running back is that made a name for himself, I think he's going to be in the same position he was with Alvin Kamara. But if he goes to a place that doesn't have a running back and needs a starter, then I can definitely say he'd be a good, excellent flex player or a possible just coming off the bench guy. I don't see him as a 1 or 2, though. I'm going to be honest. I do not see him as a 1 or 2 running back. I see him as a flex player or coming off the bench from a guy with a bye week, and you can put him in and he can get the job done and get you points and win you games when you have a key player off your roster due to a bye week. I honestly believe that. And again, it's one of those things you're looking at and thinking, well, doesn't it depend on what team he goes to? Doesn't it depend on what scheme they're running? And I say absolutely, but everyone runs the ball, and if he's the starter, he's going to get a lot of those carries and get a lot of those opportunities to run with it and make plays with the ball. So that's my take on people really. When people are talking about what scheme is going to best benefit Le'Veon Bell, and I think he can adapt to any certain scheme. I just think when it comes down to it, he's going to be very good in the play action right off the bat. He's, again, so patient when he takes the football, and he waits for an opening and he takes it, so it gives the other lineman more time to make some plays, wherever that's going to be. So I feel like anywhere he will go, he will adapt very well to the situation, adapt very well to the offense, and contribute very much with whatever team he goes to. We still don't know what team he's going to. We are waiting still. A very long time. It's like I'm getting hypnotized. Honestly. Nope. Still nothing. This is just excruciating. My stomach's got that butterfly feel. Like, I want to know what team he makes. And also, I just want to know so I could say what if he's number 1 pick in the draft or not. Because I think it all depends on where he goes. But again, like I said, Latavius Murray goes to the New Orleans Saints, going to be behind Alvin Kamara. I feel like that's going to be a big move and a big play for them, and I think that can only benefit them in the long run. Not having Mark Ingram is tough for the Saints, of course, but having Latavius Murray is not a bad replacement either. So I think they're going to be fine with that replacement. So overall, you're looking at things and going, yeah, that seems like the right move to do. So with that being said, let's move on to another player that got signed or is about to be signed by tomorrow because it's still not actually official yet. People forget that this stuff is not actually official yet until tomorrow, which is pretty crazy to think about, all things considered, because we talked about it so much and all these stuff is happening. It's still no Le'Veon Bell. It's going to be like, you know what? I'm signing with Detroit Lions. I'm signing with the Arizona Cardinals, like something crazy like that. Just make it crazy, you know? So regardless of that, moving on to the actual signing I wanted to talk about, it looks like Teddy Bridgewater is going to remain a backup quarterback for the New Orleans Saints and be the protege to Drew Brees, be the heir apparent there. So it looks like that he might be upping his stock market once he becomes the starting quarterback when Drew Brees retires. I mean, learning under him and being in the same in a good locker room, he likes the culture, and he got offered more money in Minnesota or in Miami. So he obviously turned down some pretty big bucks to stay there. So I'm assuming that things are looking potential, very, very good potential for Teddy Bridgewater. But hold up, we got some information about Le'Veon Bell. If he were to sign with the Jets, this is a big if, he would be making between $17 to $20 million annually from the Jets should he sign there. It is believed the deal will be at least a 4-year deal worth as much as $60 million with what? Whoa, $60 million guaranteed. That is quite a lot of money. Not surprising, but The surprising number is the number guaranteed. So who knows where he's going to end up, though. This is according to multiple sources, supposedly. So, but is that his only option? Is that his only deal he's gotten? Is there something more attractive to him than that? Because wherever team he goes on, you got to look at the schedule the teams are playing for that season and see if he is worthy of the number one pick. Because it's not just the team he's on, like I said. It's not just the scheme he's in because he can fit with any scheme. It's how tough the schedule is looking ahead of him. So always something to think about when it comes to that kind of stuff. But, I'm not entirely sure how this is all going to go down. But we're going to take another quick, short break. And when we come back, we'll finish up the day with some... You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do this. We're going to do our shocking predictions, for our free agents, our shocking predictions for who will be the best out of the free agent class. That's going to be what the new team and who's going to be the best possible draft pick. We'll be right there when we get back to you.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back to the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. As we await the decision of Le'Veon Bell, which seems to be happening today, maybe, or he's trolling all of us, which also could be very true. We'll see. I'm going to go with the guy who's been already agreed to a contract. It sounds like all these are verbal agreements too. But the guy that I think could be the best possible guy to draft that's been involved in free agency. That's besides Antonio Brown, obviously. Yeah, it's easier if you do, because Antonio Brown's such an easy answer. So going into this, honestly, as a late round pick, I'm gonna say again, Deshaun Jackson might be that steal for some people who he argued might do the best at anyone. And I will also add to the mix, I can't really add anyone else to the mix because I think it's just better to have one guy. So with that being said, with the current moves right now, I will stick with my pick of saying that Deshaun Jackson will be the best free agent pickup this year, besides Le'Veon and Antonio Brown, of course. But for your fantasy team, and I think he's going to be a steal. He's going to be a late round steal, and he's going to be someone's one or two at the end of the day, and he's going to benefit highly from Carson Wentz and his accurate deep ball throws. And Deshaun Jackson, who can still go deep and still has the speed of a youngster, that he can get that ball when it needs to happen. People think he's too old. I think he still has some left in the tank. And when you're looking at him, maybe if you don't think he's the one, if you can't get him, take a look at Alshon Jeffrey or Zach Ertz, obviously. But because how fast and how elusive Deshaun Jackson still is, there's going to be a safety on him as well, not just a corner if it's a man-to-man D. there's always going to be a spy looking at him just in case he tries to get away. And that leaves more options for Alshon Jeffrey and Zach Ertz, the other two key receivers on that team. So, with all that being said, is there more potential for the guys next to Deshaun Jackson, or is there more potential for Deshaun Jackson? That question is tough to say, but I would definitely have at least one potential receiver or Zach Ertz as his tight end from the Philadelphia Eagles on your team for next season. Just definitely consider looking at a Philadelphia Eagles receiving core. Just look at them. I know that Carson Wentz did not do so well last year. He came off that ACL injury, but that doesn't mean that he's gonna disappoint again. I think he can still play, and I think he could still be a very good. Because before he got injured, he was an MVP candidate. He almost ran away with it. So why is it so hard to believe that he can do that again? I think there's so much potential with this team now, adding Deshaun Jackson to that receiving core, that Alshon Jeffrey can have a career year. Zach Ertz he's still going to be playing at a high level. Obviously, he's going to be one of the top tight ends pick in the draft. But looking across the field at Alshon Jeffrey, who's going to be the number 1 receiver, and I'm assuming Deshaun Jackson is going to be the number 2 receiver, it looks to me that the Eagles' passing offense just looks like a team that can do damage. It just seems to be that way to me. That's how I see it. And I could be wrong, of course. I mean, no one's ever 100% right all the time, We're all human, But why it's not crazy to look at it and say, you know what? That guy looks like this Philadelphia Eagles receiving core looks like it could do some damage, especially with Carson Wentz as the quarterback, who is still a very talented quarterback and should be taken as a top quarterback in the draft, in the fantasy draft. So with that being said, I think it's quite. I don't call it a gamble. I call it more along the lines of a logical pick, middle of the round type of move, and it could benefit your team in the long run. That's just my bold prediction. I just think the Eagles receiving core, you got to get Jeffrey, or you should get Jackson, and that team can do well receiving wise. They have a good offensive line. They'll give Carson Wentz some time, and I think you can be pulled off as one of your top receiving your top receiver in points wise. And so, sorry, I was looking at ever look at cold takes on. If you follow freezing cold takes on Instagram, and you will find some seriously funny stuff. They interesting takes that analysts and all the guys had in the sporting world, and look and then think about it today and just laugh. So, but regardless, I'm getting off topic. Going back to my initial talk about Philadelphia Eagles receiving core, Carson Wentz can do it. Carson Wentz can come up to that level. So that's my bold prediction for who can be the best in the free agent market and who can make people around him a top pick. And Deshaun Jackson just might be that guy. And I'm disincluding Antonio Brown because I think that's more of an obvious statement. He's going to make that team better regardless. It's just one of those things where it's just it's just going to be it's just a statement of fact. That's how talented Antonio Brown is. He just makes people good around him. That's just a gimme. So I didn't want to pick him because that's just too obvious, I want to look at other people differently, or look at other guys in a different manner and think, well, maybe they can be as well. But since they're being overshined by Antonio Brown's move, then you can't really make that decision. You can't really make that assumption, make that prediction. So with that being said, more Le'Veon Bell updates, as it looks like it's between the Ravens and the Jets. Jets are offering more, but apparently Le'Veon Bell says he's loving Baltimore's ways, which they love running the ball with Lamar Jackson, and they love doing like that option move, and so why wouldn't that work, right? And Lamar Jackson loves running with the football and having Le'Veon Bell take up some of that, so he's not running the ball 30 times a game and risking injury. That could work. That could be the best fit scheme-wise for Le'Veon Bell. But I honestly, if I had to pick between, if I'm Le'Veon Bell and I'm picking the best team that makes me better, it looks like it's the Ravens, honestly. If it's between one of those two teams, and the Jets are just that bad luck type team. Hate to say it, Jets fans, but I mean, when's the last time? I mean, Super Bowl 3 was the last time you made it to a Super Bowl, and I mean, Super Bowl 3 was the last time you made it to a Super Bowl. That's what I said. And you made multiple AFC Championship games in the past with Mark Sanchez as your quarterback. Just remember, let that one sink in. But regardless, it's one of those things in where I think what best suits Le'Veon is Baltimore. But if he does go to New York, it's not the worst thing in the world. I think he could still do well there. He could still exceed there. He could still be a top player there. He could still be all pro there. So I'm not going to let that one go out. Regardless, it's a tough choice, honestly. And is he wanting the money, or does he want to be a contender, or does it not matter to him? It's really tough to say, to be completely honest with you. I just know as soon as I end this episode and say thank you for joining us, something's going to happen. I just know I can feel it in my bones. My bones are aching, aching. My bones are telling me not to end the episode because I know for a certain fact that there's going to be something happening at the end after I end this episode. Because that's happened the last 6 darn times something like this has happened. How about this? Jets versus Baltimore Ravens in a exhibition game. Winner gets Le'Veon Bell. I would watch that. A lot would watch that. Or, if it was down to 4 teams, do some sort of tournament, like a flag football thing. Winner gets Le'Veon. Who are the other 2 teams that were fighting for him? I think Oakland and San Francisco. Put them in it, too. Why not? Or just have it between the Ravens and the Jets. Winner gets Le'Veon. 7-on-7 flag football. Boom. I think that'd be actually pretty fun to watch. If I'm not gonna lie. But if Le'Veon does go to the Jets, he'll be with C.J. Mosley with that huge contract. And honestly, I don't know. I think that might be looking good for the Jets as a contender. See, I don't want to make them an immediate contender for the AFC East because, someone else is in the AFC. So who was it? All right, the New England Patriots. That's right. So with that being said, if I had to make a guess where he's going, it looks like Baltimore is his spot. And maybe better off, maybe more money in New York, sure, but better offense to be better overall, and better playoff opportunities are going to be in Baltimore. And he gets to play the Steelers in the AFC North, which is probably something that he would love to do. And probably what the Steelers would love to do as well, is he would probably get booed out of Heinz Field when he goes there for one of their games this next season if he does go to Baltimore. I guess that is true. You got to look at that facts. You got to look at more of the facts of the team's schedule, the team's division. Does Le'Veon Bell want to play the Patriots twice? Or does he want to play the Steelers twice? Or if he goes like the Raiders, does he want to play the Chiefs twice and the Chargers twice? And I just don't know. It's a tough thing to think about because you have so many other aspects to look at. But I still stand by the fact he's going to go to AFC North and want to play the Steelers twice. So that's going to be our show today. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm still watching, still on my toes. But, okay, now I have to end it. Thank you so much for joining us, everybody, and please tune us in next Tuesday for more fantasy football stuff. Well, we'll for sure know where Le'Veon Bell will be going. But as always, I'm Jeff Malinoff, and I'll see you next time.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Fantasy Football Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. From movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.